Hello calculus class, let's look at a couple of limit homework problems. So what I like to do with these problems is to open up Desmos and plug these functions, these expressions, into Desmos so we can just kind of see what we should expect the limit to be. Now, I understand that when you do this, you could get your answer, but you have to prepare yourself for the final. You are going to have some limit questions on the final exam, so don't just blow it off and say, oh look, I can just do it on Desmos, which is technically true, but you still need to be able to do it analytically for when the problem in your your final exam says show your work. You need to be able to show your work. Okay, so when I do this, I see it has a little blip there at undefined, right? There's a, right there, it has a little hole. If I can get to show it there. So undefined. But we can see as it's coming in from the left and the right, it's approaching that same value. So it's approaching a half. So technically the answer is a half, right? But how do we get a half from this? Because if I plug in 2, I get 2 squared is 4. Right, 4 plus 12 is 16. Square root of 16 is 4. I get 0 divided by 0. So I get what we call an indeterminate form. 0 divided by 0 can be an infinite number of things, like we saw in the lab this week. So what do we do? So when there's a radical like this, what you're going to do is you are going to multiply the top and bottom of your fraction, right, by the conjugate of that numerator, or the part that has the radical. So the conjugate is the square root of x squared plus 12, but instead of minus 4, we'll multiply by the conjugate, which is plus 4. Okay, and if we do it to the bottom, we'll do it to the top. And the reason why we do it to the bottom and top is because we're multiplying by this fraction. And when you multiply by a fraction, when you multiply by 1, then it doesn't change the expression. And notice this is the same thing top and bottom. So anything divided by itself is 1, and we're multiplying by 1. So we're not changing the value, we're changing what it looks like. All right, bottom, that's the bottom one, that's the easy one, that's the one we don't do anything to. So we'll just write it as x minus 2 times that radical. All right, the top, however, when we multiply the top, and when I say the top, I mean this numerator times this numerator, we got a binomial times a binomial. Binomial meaning 2 things added or subtracted times 2 other things being added or subtracted. So if you look, we've got this radical times the same thing. Okay, under this radical, that's just going to pull it out from under the radical and give me x squared plus 12. All right, that comes out from under the radical. And then outside, inside, notice we got plus 4 times that radical. Inside, we've got minus 4 times that radical, which means it's going to cancel. All right, outside and inside always cancel when you multiply by the conjugate. And then the last piece is going to be minus 4 times positive 4 is minus 16. And so this becomes x squared plus 12 minus 16, x squared minus 4 on the top. So x squared minus 4 on the top of all that other stuff. All right, well, x squared minus 4 is a perfect square, and it factors to x minus 2 times x plus 2. And now on the bottom, that x minus 2 factor that was causing our division by 0 before can cancel. All right, and what does that leave us? That leaves us with x squared plus 2 over top of this stuff down here. And now when x goes to 2, I can simply put a 2 in there, and I'll have 2 plus 2 is 4 on the top, divided by, on the bottom, we got 2 squared is 4, right? 4 plus 12 is 16. The square root of 16 is 4. So on the bottom, we'll have 4 plus 4, which is 8, 4/8, which reduces to a half. All right, so that's a lot of algebra to get there. But how do I know to do that? It's because when I plug in the number, I get 0 divided by 0. and there's a radical plus or minus something in one part of the fraction, either the top or the bottom. So when that happens, you're going to multiply that original fraction times the conjugate of the part that contains the radical. Conjugate just means change the minus to a plus, and do that on the top and the bottom. Notice on the bottom here, all I did is just put this x minus 2 times all this stuff, because for this to cancel away, for the top and the bottom to both have 0 factors, for us to be able to do anything with it, we would need that x minus 2 to cancel away, so we don't get the division by 0 on the bottom. So that's why I knew to kind of not to FOIL this out and leave it in this factored form, because the hope is this x minus 2 factor can cancel away, and it did, and so we ended up with a half. Alright, but just remember, Desmos can give you an upfront idea of what that value is going to look like, what that limit's going to be. I can see that it's going to be a half just from following in the left and right. Alright, 0.499 on the right or left side, and then same thing over here, 0.501 on the right side. They're both pointing to a half.